You're in the water loop.
The presence of 200,000 lead service lines in Cook County, Illinois poses a serious public health threat, especially to young children who are highly vulnerable to the effects of lead exposure. Addressing this issue requires collaboration across more than 130 municipalities and overcoming the complexities of replacing outdated infrastructure. One key initiative is the Lead Care program, which prioritizes removing lead lines at child care facilities. In this episode, Pakenham of Elevate, alongside Cook County officials Dominic, Tocci, and Drew Williams-Clark, provide insights into the program's structure, its funding through the American Rescue Plan Act, and its support for home-based childcare providers and smaller municipalities. Just landed in Chicago. Cook County, which is where Chicago's located, has some of the highest number of lead service lines in the country. Really interested on how they're working about replacing these lead lines. Gonna start this adventure by going to a childcare provider in the suburbs of Chicago. Kids, especially ages 6 and under, are the most vulnerable to the toxic effects of lead. So it's really important that these types of buildings are getting lead lines addressed. Gonna talk to the actual child care provider, Barbara, about her experience getting that lead out, and also meeting with Caroline Pakenham from Elevate. They are an organization that helps with a lot of issues across the Chicagoland area, and they have a special program that works to help these child care facilities get the lead out. So very excited to hear from them firsthand about this. Your lead care program in Cook County, what is this? Especially when it comes to lead line replacement, but as a whole.
Yeah, so Lead Care Cook County, it's a partnership with Cook County government, and what we do is we provide free lead service line replacement to child care providers throughout suburban Cook County. And in addition to lead service line replacement, we actually restore their property back to the way in which we found it on the exterior and the interior of the home or facility. We also do follow-up lead and water testing to make sure that lead levels are coming down after lead service line replacement. And then if child cares are still finding lead in their water, it could be an interior source of lead. So we continue to work with them until their levels come down to a non-detectable level.
I noticed when I looked on your site, you kind of have some various versions of lead care. Is that right? Can you tell me about that?
We do, yeah. So the first program, Lead Care Cook County, serves child care providers in suburban Cook County, but we also have a program called Lead Care Complete, and that's focused in the city of Chicago. And so with that program, we're working with licensed child care providers, and we offer free lead and water testing to the child cares. And if they find lead in their water, then what we do is we follow up, we do a site assessment, try and determine the source of lead, and then we offer free plumbing upgrades to help them get the lead out of their drinking water. And so it's kind of like a full service program for the child cares, and we really work with them until the mitigation actions bring the lead out of the drinking water.
I'm curious how this work's being funded. What's the formula there?
Yeah, so this is a partnership with Cook County government, and so we're able to use American Rescue Plan Act funding to support the program.
The ARPA funds, how long will those last you, and how will you kind of fund the work in the future?
Yeah, so the program right now is set to last through the end of 2026. So right now we're expecting to be able to replace right around 500 lead service lines connected to child care facilities. And we've been able to help 125 child cares so far, which is actually serving over 1,000 children. So it's really powerful when you think about it in the whole. In terms of, after this program expires, we're definitely thinking right now, what other sources of funding can we access to continue to provide residents in Cook County with lead service line replacement. EPA has a lot of wind funding that can go to child cares and schools, so that's certainly one avenue, and just looking at a lot of different state and federal sources.
Yeah. So as you were developing this program, did you look to other communities or other places around the country to see how they were doing it? Did you kind of just build this yourselves and figure it out? What was that formation process like?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Definitely chatted with a lot of municipalities. It's critical to share lessons learned. What would you avoid doing if you were to start your program over again? What has worked really well with your program? So chatted with a lot of communities on that front. We also have worked with childcare providers since 2017 on lead in drinking water. And so we also chatted with them, like, what information do you need to feel comfortable moving forward with lead service line replacement? Getting to the point of lead service line replacement, you have to build a lot of trust and buy-in. And you really have to bring people along the journey of, this is what a lead service line is, this is why it's really important to replace it. And so we had a lot of conversations with providers to learn what they needed in a program in order to feel comfortable moving forward.
And how do you do that communication and outreach? Is that really direct personal contact and conversations, or how do you kind of go about that?
Every single tool we can access, we utilize. So it's very multifaceted. So we do direct mailers, we place phone calls to childcare providers. We work with a lot of childcare provider associations to actually get the word out through them. We let the Department of Children and Family Services know what we're doing so they can educate their licensing reps about the program. We have social media posts that go out, and then municipalities are a great champion for the program too. So they're getting the word out about the program through their communication channels. We've even had mayors knock door to door on childcare provider homes to get the word out too. So we are literally using every tool available to get the word out about the program.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned the phrase lessons learned, that you try to kind of pick up from other communities. What lessons have you all learned that you think you can share with others since you've been at this for a while now?
The other thing that I have really learned is the importance of a comprehensive program. Lead service line replacement is not just lead service line replacement. It's so much more. You really have to make sure that you've figured out how you're going to restore that property and explain it to the resident before you do replacement. That's something that could prevent them from wanting to move forward with lead service line replacement. It's also critical that you're doing flushing after replacement. You're cleaning aerators, and you're doing that follow-up testing to really make sure that the lead levels have dropped.
You talked about you do the lead service line replacement, and then you do testing to make sure there is no lead in the water, because there could be lead fixtures or other pieces in the house.
Yep.
So if you do find, whoa, there's still lead after replacing the line, what's the process then?
Yeah, so we are lucky that with our funding, we can actually go to the outlets where it's testing positive still for lead. And we will do things like fixture replacements. If that's still not getting the lead out, we can do an under sink filter in combination. So we really look at the results to see what it might be indicating in terms of where the lead is coming from, and then develop a mitigation plan to address the site-specific challenges.
You've mentioned already how taking on lead service line replacement is kind of an all-stakeholder effort. So what's that relationship like? How does that work to have an organization like yours then work with a county government?
Yeah, they have been an incredibly powerful partner in making this happen. So they really recognized the need to prioritize a vulnerable population and help them address lead in drinking water. And in addition to Lead Care Cook County, we're also working with them on a program called Cook County TAP. So it's a technical assistance program for all communities in Cook County. And so with that, we're partnering with the county to provide education, best practices, the lessons learned to really help support all communities throughout Cook County to accelerate lead service line replacement. So Lead Care Cook County is one part of a larger effort that the county has to tackle lead service lines. And they're also looking at water affordability challenges too. So that's something that's very top of mind in tandem with lead service line replacement.
Barbara Nelson, a child care provider, shares a personal perspective on the transformative impact of having lead lines removed from her facility. Tell me about how you learned about the presence of lead. What kind of information went out? What requirements went out? What came to you to kind of bring your attention to this issue?
DCFS sent out an email, and I just happened to be on my email because I don't like technology. And I read that they were testing. We had to have a lead test. And that was required before we could renew our license. So I think they gave us a couple of testing places where we could call. And I called Eurofilm, Testing of America. And they told me what their prices were and what they do. They sent out containers to me, and I fill them up with water. We had to wait a night, not using water. And then I would fill up one container with just a streamline of water. And then I would put on full force and use the other container to fill it up. And then send it back to them, and they would test it.
So you tested that water, it was sent off, and what did you hear back?
That I had lead in my water.
And what was your reaction, response to that?
Well, I went to the store and brought a pure filter and put on. And I got bottled water for the kids to drink and for us to drink and me to cook in. And I just waited for DCFS to let us know what else we were supposed to do. Then we got notice that we had to do a mitigation, telling them how we was replacing our water by not using the waters from the faucets, and what we would do in order to keep the children safe.
When did it happen, and what happened to have replacement of your lead lines?
Last year, it was, I think they sent, no, I was on email again, and I saw an email from Lead Care. And so I opened it and I started reading about it, and I got in touch with the number that was on there, and they gave me some information, and I think they sent me out the form that I needed to fill out and send back to them. And then that would see if I was qualified, if I was eligible for it. And I did that, and they sent it back and said I was eligible for it.
Wow. And so they said you were eligible, and what was the next steps after that? They came out and replaced this line out in the street, basically?
Well, the next step, they brought in water, and they brought me a filtered pitcher to use, and they brought me a replacement. And then they scheduled an appointment for the guys to come out and break up the concrete outside and install the pipes.
So how long has it been since you have had no lead line running to your house here?
Since April.
Okay.
April of this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does that feel like for you?
It feels really good. It feels really good because I know what lead does to people, so it really feels good not to have lead, the kids drinking lead, me drinking lead, because it's worse on children and seniors, than it is, the more you accumulate, the worse it is in your system. And
could you talk more about the kids and the impacts on them, or why it's good that you don't have lead pipes for the kids?
Well, I explained to them when Lead Care came in that I would be having my pipes change because my pipes were lead, and lead poisons you. And so I told them, I said, well, you all need to go home and have your mom to have her water tested to see if she has lead in her water.
Well, that was heartening to actually see how lead is getting out of the ground and these programs that are protecting kids from the harmful effects. Caroline from Elevate, the thing I found most interesting is that once they replace that lead service line, that's not where they stop. They check that water and test that water to make sure that it is clean. And if they find that there's still lead in the water, they will push that mission into the house and try to identify where there might be fixtures or other sources of lead, and if possible, replace those as well. That is such a critical step. Don't assume just because that lead line's replaced that the water is lead-free. Heading now to downtown Chicago to sit down with some officials from Cook County to learn about their kind of comprehensive efforts across this region. At the Cook County offices, I first spoke with Dominic Tocci. Tell me about Cook County and the footprint of lead service lines here. What does it look like? It's pretty well known that the city of Chicago is the highest number of any city in the U.S. Talk to me about this county.
Well, so Cook County, which includes the city of Chicago, is second largest county in the country. We've got about a little over 5 million people in total. A little over half of that's the city of Chicago. The other half, so about 2.5 million in suburban Cook County, which is comprised of over 130 different suburban municipalities. So a lot of communities that all have their own infrastructure challenges they're dealing with. In terms of lead service lines, one of the challenges I think of the work is we don't have really solid data on the number of lead lines out there, but estimates are about in the ballpark of 200,000 lead service lines. And so you could do the math pretty easily. To solve that problem completely is significant amounts of funding. So, it's something the county has kind of prioritized, trying to make some progress on. Have allocated some of our American Rescue Plan Act funding to do some work both through the Bureau of Economic Development and also our Bureau of Asset Management.
Tell me about that prioritization of dealing with the lead issue. Was there a kind of a moment where it's like, okay, we need to kind of move this up as a priority, and then what's the overall approach that comes with that?
Sure. I think when we had the pandemic funding, both some of the earlier sets of relief funding and then especially the American Rescue Plan Act, I think the county took a kind of pretty deliberate step of saying they would use a really significant amount of that funding toward community-facing programs, not just for county operations. And so I think across the county there was an opportunity and a process for proposing different projects, important priorities, and our Bureau brought forward the lead service line work as something that we felt was important. So both hopefully trying to make a dent in the actual replacement, but also doing some work, which we can talk a bit more about too, around technical assistance to municipalities. So recognizing we're not going to have enough money to tackle this whole problem, but we could put some work into educating our communities about the process, the steps they need to go through, and helping them address that challenge. And so, we were successful in getting $15 million allocated toward a lead service line program. And so as we thought about the best way to use that 15 million, I think we kind of fairly quickly settled on trying to break off a manageable sort of chunk or subset, so to speak, and we thought what better place to start than with some of the high-risk facilities and especially childcares. And that universe in suburban Cook of specifically home-based licensed childcares was a group we thought we could completely handle with that 15 million. So I think that's what kind of pushed us in that direction, was to roll out a program focused on those home-based childcares and hopefully help anyone who needed it and was willing to take part in the program. And it offers free lead service line replacement.
Then I chatted with Drew Williams Clark. Tell me about the municipalities here, how many there are, and how you try to work with that many.
Sure. So, broadly, the county has a lot of different programs, but I'll speak to the way Build Up Cook and the Bureau of Asset Management works with municipalities. So we started our program design process by sort of owning the idea under the president's policy roadmap that we were going to prioritize equity in the way that we use our American Rescue Plan Act funds. And so it started from the premise that many funding programs will have different local governments compete against each other for those programs. And the benefit to that, obviously, is that sort of the folks that can organize those applications and their accounting really, really well do very well in those competitive processes. The problem that we find is that those that have a limited capacity, which usually can be traced back to tax capacity and their ability to raise funds, don't compete as well by and large. And there is a growing body of research that shows that sort of across the country. So what we did was looked at where the need was highest using a bunch of different indicators and say we're going to work with 26 of the most under-resourced municipalities in Cook County, and as opposed to making them compete, we're going to iterate with them on a needs assessment for a variety of ways that we can support them. So we provide support in sort of two big buckets. One is that we do construction support. So that means we will procure and do needed construction projects within a certain margin, essentially. And the other side of that is that we do capacity building. So there are a few things that sort of fall underneath that. One is that we do sort of more traditional technical assistance. We do workshops with our 26 our cohort, and we'll focus on topics that they have said are in really high need. So we've done a round of that this year. We'll do another round of that next year. The other side of it is that we will identify projects that are high priority for them, meet a variety of different sort of urgency factors, and also work for the particular funding source that we're using.
Wow. What about when it comes to this lead service line challenge?
Sure.
What's, from your perspective and where you sit, what's the approach, especially with working with the municipalities out there?
Sure. So what we've chosen to do by and large is work with them to ensure that they can make it through the process of applying for drinking water state revolving fund money that's coming down through the bipartisan infrastructure law, and of which the state of Illinois got a sizable chunk. And so that just means that the SRF, which is, you've already done a podcast on that, so your listeners already know all about that. I'm going to try to avoid all the ins and outs of SRF. But what that means is that our municipalities stand to benefit quite a bit from monies that are going to be bigger than they've ever been before, and focused primarily on lead service line replacement. The challenge, again, is that those communities that have done well in the past at sort of pipelining, applying for, and managing those funds stand to do very, very well, because all they're doing is scaling up their existing programs. The challenge is for communities that struggle with program requirements in general, and especially under the SRF, they need help with that. And so we put out an offer at the beginning of our program period saying, if you're in our group and you would like us to provide you soup to nuts wraparound support in getting through that process, we are happy to do that. If you would rather put your hired engineers on other priority problems, we're going to take that over for you. So focusing on a $440,000 contract, that's the weight that we were able to put behind that aspect of the work. We've already been able to raise $12.1 million new dollars. So that's a leverage of about $27 coming to our communities for every dollar that the county has put into that effort.
Wow, fantastic.
So,
yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, we're excited about that.
and how is it going on the ground out there as a result of this effort, right? What's the practical, tangible results?
The tangible results are that people are not drinking poisoned water. And while the volume is ramping up precipitously, given that the funds only really recently came online, and that governments take a while, honestly, to design and roll out programs. But we're hitting our stride really right now, and so the numbers that you heard from BED about, those are going to grow, and our numbers are going to grow too. But I think it's really important in these conversations to remember that the reason we're here is because it's a neurotoxin that affects young kids really, really badly, and we need to keep centering on that aspect of the work. So the way I think about it is, the impact is going to be more folks that can participate more fully in society and live vibrant lives.
There's several more years where the bipartisan infrastructure law dollars are
Right.
going to be coming down, and you can kind of keep going and roll this out. Have you all done any thinking about past that and kind of how you can keep this fight against lead going?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think for the time being, we're working on growing and improving sort of our economies of scale of being able to deliver on a rotating SRF allocation and growing that for the communities that we're working with so far. I think beyond that, we're going to be looking at all kinds of things. And we're really just now really early in that conversation. What are the other funding streams you could use? I think the key here is that for the communities that we're targeting, the concern has always been underinvestment in water infrastructure. And really, they're not alone. That's everyone. It's underground. I'm preaching to the choir on this, I'm sure. But
Can't be said enough, though.
Right, no, but I think that the narrative is going to quickly divert into people just need to charge higher water rates. I think the challenge is, especially in a place like Cook County where you have 130 different municipalities, folks are happy to move as soon as those rates increase. And we're at the point now where we have that kind of challenge facing people who are already very limited in the choices that they can make based on their life circumstances. So if you raise a water bill significantly, which is in the cards at this point, potentially likely, people are just going to move to where it's lower.
Yeah.
And that's going to be challenging for everyone. It's going to cause all kinds of downstream implications. So displacement, that's obviously the human consequence, but it also means how do you maintain a local government with that kind of dynamic population changing?
Sure. Lastly, I want to just ask maybe lessons learned or advice for other communities. You guys are on the front of these efforts. There's a lot of other counties across
Sure.
the country that are trying to figure out how to do this. What
Sure.
kind of advice would you have for them on how to put together a program and start to get through this?
Yeah, no, I think there needs to be increasing exploration about how the SRF set-aside allowance for technical assistance can be used. And there's some great research coming out about that from some of our partners. But there's a growing understanding that we have to really explore how much of those dollars are being used and how we use those dollars in terms of what they're being invested in. So, I think there is a lot of benefit to sort of classroom experiences and resources that are sort of broadcast so people can find out how to get things done. I think the deeper challenge that we're going to need to lean into is that there just aren't enough bodies to do the work. And so the money is out there in some ways, but we need to think about how we right-size the amount of money that goes to folks that can help it get to the places that need it the most.
Woke up this morning in Chicago to a form of water falling out of the sky, commonly called snow. Pretty awesome. Heading out to Hazel Crest. It's one of the 130 municipalities in Cook County, and they have really been working hard to get lead lines out of the ground. Super excited that we are going to be filming and watching them actually do a lead service line replacement, and going to catch up with the village manager, Dante Sawyer, who's really a great leader on this type of lead work. So excited to see this. Dante Sawyer, village manager of Hazel Crest, highlights the importance of community engagement and the economic benefits, including job creation.
We have started and are making progress with our lead service line replacement program. To date, we have replaced about 115, 120 lead service lines. And we are focusing on what we call our phase 1 project area, which is one of our subdivisions where do some analytics that we think have a good concentration of lead service lines. And then as we wrap up that area, then we're looking to move on to phase 2. I think we're estimating, on a high end, I think we were estimating upwards of maybe around 2,700 lead service lines throughout the village. But of course, trying to work with residents, get response to them in order to get in their houses, verify that they're there, and then schedule an appointment. And as you see from your time out here this morning, it take a little while to actually remove a lead service line. So I guess we anticipate being at this probably about another 3 years or so.
Okay. 3 years. So yeah, you're really going to probably then be accelerating the pace of the projects and getting them out then.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So this was year one. And then I think we had to submit. So our funding for this program was to the state revolving fund, which is essentially a tranche of money which is made available through the federal EPA, and then passed out here in the state through the IEPA. And with the state revolving fund, we had to submit a plan. I think our engineer submitted a 5-year plan in order to get all the lead service lines out here in the village of Hazel Crest.
Wow. How do you pick up the pace? How are you able to do that to kind of ramp up how many you're doing to get through that 2,700 or so?
Yeah, communication, engagement with residents, raising the visibility of what we do and what we're doing here. When we first started off, we sent notices to residents. They may not responded at the volume that we was hoping that they responded at the beginning, but as one resident, word of mouth, they see what their neighbor did and they ask, hey, can someone come out and see if I have a lead service line? So the more visibility to this project, more emphasis, more awareness that we can raise around it, hopefully that can help pick up the pace of it a little bit as well too.
Yeah, I heard the same thing on the child care provider side, that word of mouth outreach is so key. It can be difficult and tricky, but when they said word of mouth, as soon as like the different child care providers were talking to each other,
right,
they're like, no, this is legit, this is okay, they're gonna come do it, that helped. So that makes sense for people's houses.
Yeah, when we speak about it, we definitely emphasize the opportunity to get some free plumbing work done at your house, right?
Yeah, it's not an everyday offer.
There you go.
Could you talk a little bit about like the economic impact of infrastructure work? What it does for like the village of Hazel Crest to have this type of activity happening, what it does for companies out there and everything?
Well, I mean, you are essentially, this is, to give some numbers behind this, I think we've been awarded maybe around $10 million in state revolving funds for this project. So that's $10 million that we will be then using to infuse into the local economy from people that's being hired to do the work, from the purchase of materials, other goods and services that goes along with that. So it can help bring another injection of commerce to our particular area, and once again, the home values, now that you have this item removed from your house, I would also think that will then make your house value increase as well, because you're removing this hazardous item out of your home.
You all are one of like 130 municipalities in Cook County, which is amazing to me. You probably talked to some of the other folks, right, in different municipalities. Could you talk about you guys how you're approaching this and funding it and getting it done versus maybe some of them working more with the county? And there's different ways for you all to kind of come at this issue, right?
Yeah, I mean, correct. So as I think the state revolving fund is administered locally through the IEPA, with funds that come down federal from the EPA. That seemed to be the biggest tranche of resources available for lead service line removal. I know there are programs that the county has developed and are also utilizing to help residents with lead service line removal, particularly home daycare providers. I believe the county was using ARPA dollars to help fund those projects as well too. And then most recently, I know communities are looking into what is the community change grant. I apologize, I can't remember what agency administered it, but that's another fund, another pool, another bucket of resources that's available to the federal government to help communities kind of address this challenge.
And some communities like you are working with, a consulting firm to kind of put this together.
Yes.
Some other municipalities are kind of working to getting some help directly from the county to put it together.
Yeah.
Some municipalities might have enough staff that can kind of go and do it. So it's really a mix.
It's a mix. Yeah, it's a mix. Yeah.
And you guys kind of share stories a little bit as to what's going on?
We probably can do more of best practices.
Yeah.
I was part of a cohort with other communities, but these were communities from all over the country. So working through EPIC, we had a chance to, engage with some other communities, municipalities that's also addressing these challenges, and had opportunity to learn from some of their best practices, because we was all at various stages of the process.
So what advice would you have for other communities? There's so many across the country. There's 9 million lead lines out there.
Yeah.
What advice would you have as they're maybe not as far along as you guys? How do you kind of
get this work going?
Yeah, I would say first, get the support of your elected leadership, right? Your mayor, your president of the board, your board members, your trustees as well, because they're going to require there to be some consensus amongst them of how we're going to spend our time and resources on this effort, and then maybe speak to the experts, right? If you do have an engineering firm that you work with, maybe ask them for their input or assistance, or maybe talk to some of the other agencies in your community, whether it's the county or other state agencies that's available that's also tackling this issue. And the first thing you want to do also along with that is just be transparent about the process. Really focus on community engagement, because you're gonna need the support of your residents. 'Cause you got to go into their house to verify the lead service line. Yeah. You got to interrupt their water service as you start to replace the lead service line. So you really gonna have to be in lockstep or work well with the community in order to get the outcome that you're trying to achieve.
You're in the water loop.